Did I do it? No. Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to Nerds Night Out. I'm Tom Tormey, and my special guest tonight is Mr. Kyle Goodman. He is here to talk about his upcoming comic book, Here Walks Monsters, as well as everything from zombies to Marvel and beyond. Kyle, thanks for coming out. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. I had read the ash can of Here Walks Monsters and instantly was infatuated with it. I do love a good post-apocalyptic fiction. I love a good horror zombie book, and Here Walks Monsters absolutely hits all the marks for me. I really do dig it. It's a great book.
Well, thanks. I mean, so this book, I initially started writing it as a novel almost 10 years ago. Over the years, I've lost part of it. My computer and hard drives got stolen a few years back, and half the book that I had on there, I was doing like 10 to 20,000 pages of and I had about half it
Damn.
done. And I just gave up. And then about 5 years ago, I refound the one of the Word documents that had the map. It was every single stop, every single item, every event that I had planned out for the entire novel. And I was like, oh my God, I've got it. Oh my God.
Yeah,
And then I
great, man.
decided, let's make it into a comic book. And I initially, when I started writing it, it wasn't a zombie comic book. It is a story of the downfall of society, and what happens to humanity when society is no longer there to tell us how to behave. And then I figured, you got to set that in an apocalypse of some sort. And I'm a huge zombie fan, so it was a no-brainer to pick that as my mode of transportation for this story.
Right. Did you ever? So you recovered the Word document, kind of like your Bible. You laid out the steps of. You ever recover anything else from the original?
I have the first three chapters from the original, and that's it.
Oh, okay, great, great.
And
Yeah. So
I no three chapters and two randoms. Like I wrote like one of the main characters' deaths and another significant moment in the book separate. Like that was on another
okay.
drive elsewhere, because that was just like something I wrote in the thought of it, like, oh my God, let me write this down real quick. And it's just like 5 pages here and there. But yeah, I have the first three chapters and that's it.
Now you mentioned the main characters of the book in the Ash Can, unless I'm not mistaken. I did read it twice. You don't mention their names. Is that a
Correct.
willful determination on your part? To
So
leave their names out of the Ash Can?
definitely. One of the characters, the male character, his real name won't be mentioned until probably towards the end of the series. Because he's gonna just be because the other main character, her name is Karen, and I picked that deliberately. It's not, I don't think it is actually said in the Ashcan, but her name is Karen because I picked that specifically because when you hear Karen, you think of the crazy internet ladies going nuts. I know so many
Yes, yes.
amazing
Ruining a
Karens.
picnic.
Right. I know so many amazing Karens that I was like, you know what? I'm taking that name back. So my main,
Okay.
like
All right.
her Karen is basically a soccer mom that shouldn't be okay living in this world, but because she linked up with the main character, she's able to be kind of a mom and still survive. We'll learn more about
She
her
she
later,
does
but
call him kid.
yeah,
Yeah,
Eh, that
she
that
calls him kid a few times.
and she acts very motherly through most of the series, and that's just because. And
Mhm.
I think in most zombie or any type of horror stuff, the short dude, he's just a comic relief and dies early. The soccer mom, comic relief to look good and to die early. So I made those two, a short male and a soccer mom, basically, the main characters of my horror story, because there's not a lot of representation for that type of character, especially in horror. And
Right.
I feel like it's necessary. So I decided to write one myself.
No, on behalf of short guys everywhere, thank you. Okay. I'm 5'7", and I don't know if statistically that's considered short, but when I go to work and I'm surrounded by these very tall guys, I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just have a seat for a second? But
Yep.
so growing up, I was a short, fat guy, and now I'm an old, short, fat guy. They always had the big and tall stores. I always said we should open a store called like Short, Fat, and Stupid, and I would be in my
Oh yeah.
glory. Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be great.
Side note. I'm in. Let's get some more investors and let's make this thing because it's how hard it is to shop for pants for me.
Oh,
I'm tiny. I'm 5'3" on a good day.
okay.
So
Every day is a good day.
well, some days I feel taller than others. But like for me, because I'm kind of hefty, I got some weight to me. I used to play sports, so, I got some build on me, so it's hard to buy clothes for people like me. Like to fit my waist, it's gonna be dragging on the floor. I gotta get hemmed. You know what I mean? Like so, yeah. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's a,
Oh yeah.
a whole market that we could. Hey, listen, I'm in. I'm in.
That's it. That's it. All right. So after Here Walks Monsters 1, and we go from there. We'll reinvest some of that money into Short, Fat, and Stupid, and we'll become instant millionaires. Maybe
That's
we'll leave
nice.
the stupid off, but
I don't know.
so
I kind of like the
there's
stupid.
obviously a lot of inspiration. What's that?
I said I kind of like the stupid, but that's okay.
I you know what I do too. It's got that
It's got a
certain
ring to
quality,
it.
that certain je ne sais quoi. Right, right. It's very clear reading Here Walks Monsters that there's this zombie influence. Even as you said, it wasn't originally set out to be that. I do again look good post-apocalyptic literature. You can't go wrong with it. In fact, I always tell people I love picking up zombie books because the movies are generally all about how much gore you could toss out there, whereas the books are about the survival. How would you
Yeah.
survive in a world like this? So I'm going to ask two questions I think that will strike to us. In the book, the main character, who you said will reveal his name toward the end, haven't you? He says, "Haven't you ever seen a zombie movie?" And it's very clear that you have. Is there one in particular, or any in particular, that stand out in your mind? It's like these are great. These are great movies, and you got to see
Uh,
them.
let's see. So that's kind of hard to answer because for me, I love even the corny, horrible D zombie movies. So for me, you cannot do wrong for a
Okay.
zombie movie. But when you look at some of the classics, Day of the Dead, anything Romero did, I mean, if you see Romero tied to a zombie film, watch it. That's
Damn right.
that simple. And I loved like The Walking Dead.
Sure,
I
sure.
feel like my book is like kind of a cross between The Walking Dead and The Last of Us.
Okay, that's fair. I
Because
can see that. I can see the influence there.
the Last of
Uh,
Us is very down to earth and real, and it focuses more on the people turning into monsters instead of just living in the world. Because a lot of them, like if you look at Joel, for instance, he hates himself and what he's had to
mhm.
do to survive. But he knows he had to because he wanted to survive, and keep living for the memory of his daughter. But and then you look at like The Walking Dead, where it's clear that zombies shouldn't be issues for very long. So in my book, I have both zombies and infected because
What's
the
the
way
distinction?
so there'll be more distinction really as I move through the story, but the main difference is a zombie was turned by the virus that killed a whole bunch of people, because it's set in a world like ours, where there was a pandemic, and so those people, if they bit someone, those people became infected, and those are more like like almost like um what's that Will Smith I Am Legend type zombies,
Oh, sure, sure.
like where they have actual like not necessarily thoughts, but it's more they retain more of themselves when they're just infected.
Understood. Right.
And so there's the
They have
running
that kind
zombies.
of. Yeah,
So you
yeah.
got like the normal, you got like the Walking Dead, just regular zombies, and then you have the infected. And they're two different breeds of the same monster, really. And I kind of also did it just to be kind of a screw Utah people who would be like, well, it's not a zombie comic book, it's an infected comic book. Oh no,
Hmm.
technically they're zombies. That's not gonna happen with mine because they're
Right.
both.
When I read and it said infected, I'm like, okay. I'm like, but you outright say zombies in the book. Yeah. So we weren't having a 28 days later kind of infected rage virus kind of debate. These are
Right.
there are the infected and there are the zombies, and we can make a distinction between the two. I
Yeah.
do have to ask, because a few minutes earlier you had mentioned that you're a fan of all the zombie films from your mainstream ones that you've made a few references, but you did say the D end, the like the hard end. Are we talking like Dead Snow? Are we
Talking
talking
like I think the title is called Wrestling Zombies, and it's like
Wrestling Zombies?
it's a washed up actual I think former WCW wrestler. I
Wait,
cannot remember
I think
the
I feel
name.
like saying Roddy Piper is in that movie, but
Yes, yes,
right. Oh, okay.
yes.
Jesus,
It
I
is
shouldn't know that.
one of the worst
Yes.
movies of all time. But it's a zombie movie, and I'm sitting there watching it, loving it because it's zombies. Like, I mean, I
Right.
even like if like ones that have a lot of issues, like the new Zack Snyder Army of the Dead or the Army of
Oh
the
yeah,
Dead.
I enjoyed that.
That has I loved it, but it has a lot of issues when you try to look at continuity things like what is the limit of the infection when it comes to
Yeah.
the smarter versions versus the just the regular dumb ones. Like, is there robots? Like, there's just so many things that you
Oh,
can bring up that are
I
like,
was hoping you were gonna say that.
why are we watching this? But I'm still
I gotta tell
enjoying
you,
it.
I remember watching it like a lot of people when it first came out. I was enthralled by it, and I think at one point my wife goes, "Did that zombie just spark?" And I'm like, "No, no." And she rewound it, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm instantly in love with this movie." There's a robot. Why are there robot zombies in there? I don't know. We never got an answer. I don't need
Why
an
was there a
answer.
ninja zombie?
Oh,
Like, that was the coolest thing
yeah,
ever. I watched that and was like, how can I make that?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I have to figure out a way to write that in somehow. Like, he was not like, I'm
It's
thinking like this is the best. It is the best worst zombie movie. You
fine.
know what I
That's fair.
mean?
There's
Like,
beauty in the absurdity of it, though. There's beauty in the absurd. Uh,
yes.
the I people sometimes like, oh, did you watch that documentary this week? And I'm like, no, man, I watched Sand Sharks with Brooke Hogan and Edgar Allan Poe the Fourth. I don't know what documentary you're talking about, but I watched Sand Sharks. Like, what's that about? I'm like, it's about sharks that go in sand. I don't need anything else.
Yeah, no, and that's yeah, that's with me with zombies. Like, if like, and then there's also like one thing that I love about zombies is that you can tell in the same story two different kinds of stories. Like, if you look at Black Summer
Oh
and
yeah, sure.
what's the one that is the prequel to Zombie. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank.
No, I didn't
Um
even know there was a prequel to that.
so yeah, it's a prequel to a series that was long running that was kind of more goofy. I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it like at one
See-
point they Z Nation. There we go.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
love Z Nation,
Z
even
Nation
though
was
it's
good.
absurd.
It
Like,
that's the great thing about it.
the ball of zombies
Yeah, yeah,
running through
right,
the
right.
I'm sorry, that was so stupid, but I
But
was like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, I don't know why,
that's an
like, I loved
Asylum
it.
show, I think, right? I think that's made by Asylum. Like that's their shtick. I think the best thing I read about Asylum is they make terrible movies, but they don't set out to. And I just
Right.
love that somehow it inadvertently happens that each and every one of them, from Sharknado to all these
It,
Z Nation, they're all
Z
absurd. But
Nation, I love that show. And
yeah,
then like this in the same world, they also tell Black Summer, which is the prequel, like what happened during the initial outbreak of Z Nation. So
I
like
didn't know they were connected. I missed out on
oh
that.
my god, it's like if you watch it again, um I'll send you a message. I can't remember, there was a couple scenes that were like exactly referenced
Yeah, yeah.
in from Z Nation, and I'll send them to you. And it's great. Like, the fact that they can have like two type of stories in the same world, it's just fantastic. And that's what zombie and horror in general, good, bad, and different. Like, whether it's a list, millions and millions of dollars, or $20,000 fan film, horror
Yeah,
is
right.
almost always amazing unless they just overdo the CGI. But that's really the only thing that bothers me
Fair
in
enough.
horror. This is overuse of CGI.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there are some great ones out there, and I think
Oh,
Here
right.
Walks Monsters kind of really takes some. That's the great thing about zombie books. And you had mentioned I Am Legend before, which I think is historically considered to be the first piece of zombie literature. And oddly enough, I remember reading about this a while back. Is that the Smurfs were the first comic book to feature a kind of zombie apocalypse type thing in a book called the Black Smurfs, which they changed to Purple Smurfs in the United States to avoid any kind of racial connotation. So I
Oh
mean,
man, I gotta look
these
that
are
up.
books that, oh, it's fantastic. You know, They say nap, nap, nap if they get bitten. It's great. Uh,
Awesome.
but this is not new. This genre is not a new genre. Horror is not a new genre. Yet, uh, you are taking it as others have, everyone from Robert Kirkman to George Romero, and you're taking it and you're putting your own spin on it. If there was a takeaway, and your book really does, the Ashcan that I read reads very cinematically,
That
and
that's by design, 100%.
oh,
I've
perfect,
actually
perfect.
used that exact phrasing. Like I write it to read cinematically
Okay,
because
it's evident, right?
when I read a comic book, great art is great art, but you can't just have great art. There has to be a nuance to it at some points of the book. Like in one part of we actually like just have silhouettes of the zombies trying to attack
Yes.
them one of the characters. And like one of the another scene I actually when I wrote it in the script, I told him I said to the artist, I'm like, this is like an anime quick clip where it's one, two, three, the same movement, but broken up into three like spot frames. And he was like, "Oh, I know exactly what you mean."
Are you talking about the sword?
Yes.
Are you talking about where I get? You know what? I had a feeling you were. There's this great series of panels for anyone listening. If you haven't read the Ashcan, if you haven't been checking out the Here Walks Monsters Kickstarter, uh, there's this great series of panels in which our main one of our main characters uh, essentially takes out all his anger and frustration with a sword. Which again, I don't know where the sword came from, and I don't care. There, I mean, I'm sure you might explain. I'm sure you will. But the truth is, at any given point, you could brandish. Oh, if he took out throwing stars, if he took out a gun, that's the great thing about this kind of universe is that explanation. Every explanation becomes plausible. And why does he have a sword? I didn't need to know. All I know in that series of panels, and you're absolutely right, I had that quick flow to it. He's taking the sword to the zombies, and he's having a great time doing it. And I was having a great time looking at it. So it's a win.
Yeah, and I'm very lucky. Like so both me and my artist Martin, this is our first ever published comic book. Like he's done, black and white and images and stuff. He has like 10,000 followers on Instagram. He's a Canadian artist. Martin Olivier Dejanay. I hope I did that in the right order. I'm a little dyslexic, so I
Oh,
might get that backwards.
listen, dude. I'm glad you said it. I read the name. I'm like, damn, I don't want to butcher a French Canadian name. I'm just gonna say your artist Martin.
So when I write my scripts, I write it specifically for him. So my scripts are horrible. Like they look like crap, and like, and to the point where I have to go over it 3 or 4 times before I hand it off to the letterer, because I write it for him to draw what I'm thinking. And that's what I realized that me and Martin have this weird bond where like I can give a little explanation and he knows exactly what I meant or even a better way to do it. Where
Uh,
my
that's hard to
my
find, man.
letterer, dude,
You
it's
lucked out.
absolutely like I
Yeah.
say all the time, I am the luckiest creator you will ever find
Oh yeah.
because he just gets it and he knows exactly what I want. Like I very rarely have to give him edits. Sometimes I'm like,
I've
I don't
heard
like this,
nightmarish.
but
Yeah.
I maybe move this or I don't like the way that looks. But for
Okay.
the
I mean,
most
that's
part,
typical. That's a
he
good
just
working relationship,
it's
though.
done. Like
I've heard nightmarish stories
yeah,
where writers go back and forth with the artist and not even remotely close to anything they envisioned, and all that time, all that money, all wasted, and it just kind of sours the whole creative experience. So yeah,
yeah.
with Martin, beautiful French name. I'll just say that at the end, just in case I don't mess it up. You really you lucked out. You got a winner. I also your letterer, perfect man,
Tyrone.
perfect because there's this series of panels where they are uh, into like the Department of Corrections. They're in a penitentiary, and although uh, you don't know they're whispering, but you know they are by the word bubbles, and
Yes.
they're almost translucent,
Yep.
and it just kind of relays that like we're whispering feeling. It was perfect.
So when Tyrone came on to the project, he came on very late. I've been working on this Ashcan for like 2 years, trying to get it done and trying to get the art done and getting it how I wanted it. Then I had the artist do the lettering, and it didn't this actually at MegaCon last year. So when I went to MegaCon last year, I went with all 10 pages complete and lettered by Martin, and I brought it to MegaCon going, I'm gonna show this to people and they're gonna freaking love it.
Right.
And I'm gonna go to print. Everyone I showed it to, they're like, wow, the art's amazing. I like the story. It's an interesting idea, but the lettering is not good. Like I
Mm.
had one person literally say the lettering is trash. Like if you gave this to an editor, they would literally laugh at you. And I was like, "Ooh, okay." And I went
Yeah.
back to the drawing board, and I didn't know what to do. And my good friend John from Encase Comics, he hooked me up with his letterer because he's actually also writing his first comic book as well. Um, so once he came on, he kind of breathed a new life into the project that I thank him all the time because it literally like almost like electroshock. Oh my God, we've got a letter. Let's go. And it
Right.
just came together. I've worked really hard with him too, because I want you to be able to tell things by the lettering. A lot of the people don't realize how important lettering is to comics. I think if it's done right, it gives a depth to conversations. It can do subtext. It can take on a life of its own, and that's what separates good comic books from great comic books. And I would
Well,
rather push things back again and again and again to make a great book instead of rushing out a good book or even a bad one.
I agree. I'm glad you're taking your time and you have a great team. And I assume in this entire process, there's been those kind of ups and downs of self-publishing.
Oh yeah.
Is there any advice you would give to someone who's looking to self-publish, kind of go any different route, something that you had learned through this process that you wish you had known before, and you
Oh,
would like to share with people trying to do it now?
absolutely. Um, the biggest thing is network your ass off before you
Mm,
even start the project. Because like for instance, when I launched my Kickstarter for my first ever comic book, I once I launched it is when I started trying to go line up interviews.
okay.
I should have lined up interviews for months prior while everything was being finished. Like, because I had the art done for a while. We were just going back and forth on the lettering, adjusting this, changing this, at the last little extra stuff that would have got done anyways by the time that the Kickstarter launched or even finished for that matter. And I just waited till I had the 100% finished product. I didn't send it off to go get printed yet, but I had the complete ash can. I would have if I mean when I get ready to start launching the full first issue, I'm going to be reaching out to all of my colleagues and friends in the comic book community far earlier than I did this time because I only ended up doing like 5 to 6 interviews during the whole process.
Mhm.
I should have had 5 or 6 interviews prior to it even launching. To build
I
hype for
understand.
the
Right.
book. So once you launch it, like my biggest fear was launching the Kickstarter and it not getting funded and nothing, and then having to start all over again. And everything you put into everything just goes because with Kickstarter, if you don't reach your goal, you get nothing. No one gets charged, and it's a failed project.
Mm,
I was lucky enough to not have to worry about that because my book was fully funded within like 2 weeks. It didn't get
that's
much more funded than that, but I mean, still, that was also on me because I didn't give enough incentive for people to like. What the thing about crowdfunding is you can't. It's not only just about the items you're giving people, but it's almost like the community gather together kind of thing. Like, let's reach a goal together so we all get better stuff. Like the stretch goals, I didn't even have any
right.
for the first one for the ash can. Like I should have had $1,000 cover B, 2,000 we upgrade the cover to chromium or whatever. You know what I mean? I should have had more sequential markers to hit. Like that's why I hit the 100% around 2 weeks in and ended up with like 115 or 116% or something like that, completely funded, but just a little bit extra.
Okay.
Because I didn't
Well,
have
I
that
mean,
incentive for anyone to go, hey, let me
right.
grab my 5 friends. So if they get on, my book gets upgraded. That's something I definitely learned through that process. But the self publishing, it's rough. If you don't have the audacity to do everything yourself, try to pitch it to a publishing company, because like I have to do everything, So like for instance, I have a
Right.
MegaCon exclusive coming up next weekend at MegaCon through 305 Comics Miami. Um, I had to reach out to them. I had to get that set up. I had, if I was just with a publisher, the publisher would have done that. The publisher would have worried about selling everything. The publisher would have worried about promoting it. And I could have just gone on, the interviews and had fun. But instead, I had goals. I have to do all this myself. A lot of times, I would not recommend that for everyone. There's a lot of ways to publish and where you can work with a publisher and still own all your rights and, and get majority of the profits and stuff like that too. But they handle a lot of the extra stuff that weighs down the production a little bit, because I got to worry about that, not just about creating the story.
Hmm. Yeah. So you become the creative aspect, but also the business aspect, the promotion aspect, and it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's clear that you're invested in the process. And the Kickstarter campaign as well. So is it fair to say that you kind of, if you could go back, you'd get a little bit more well versed in how to conduct a Kickstarter campaign, and
Well,
also really network, right?
oh, absolutely. I and
Yeah.
part of it's on me, because I know quite a few creators who have ran very successful Kickstarter campaigns. I didn't reach out to them for help. I didn't ask them what would their advice be.
Okay.
I self-publishing this in my head, I have to do it all on my own, and I'm starting to learn. Obviously, that's even the creation of the book. I'm not on my own. I have a whole team that's working to make this dream possible, and I have to allow them to support me. I mean, like I don't.
And I'm sure they want to.
They do no, and
Right.
like John from Encase Comics. I mean, he's been vital in keeping me. I don't want to say on the right path, but keeping the fire lit.
Sure,
Because
sure.
now we kind of have this little unspoken rivalry now, because like he beat me to a con exclusive. His Ashcan was at LA Comic Con this past year. I had the first successful Kickstarter campaign. He already had his issue one in with his artist about a month ago. I just got the issue one minus 2 pages to my artist a couple weeks ago, but I had my first um signing coming up next weekend. So I mean, we had this little budding rivalry, and we're gonna end up working together on future projects. But he's definitely helped keep me, hungry more so than just it'll get done when it gets done. When you're self-publishing or self-creating and don't have deadlines, if you can't do it yourself, you
Right.
better have someone that's gonna check in on you, make sure you're still doing what you got to do.
Well, it's good that
And
you get John. It's good that you have that kind of professional, I wouldn't say rivalry, but also like, just that back and forth, really.
yeah,
And I think that's going to help you both. It's a good thing. At least you're both going through the same trials and tribulations together.
yeah,
You're both learning at the same time. But I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with getting some direction, some advice, and calling on the people who do want to support you, and letting them
right.
support you. It may not always be financially, but it could be
No,
something.
exactly.
Anyway, how did you're going to be at MegaCon next week? You said.
Yes. February 1st through the 4th, MegaCon Orlando, uh, the 305 Miami Comics. They have a booth at Artist Alley, booth 109. One of the co-owners of that retailer is an artist, and she did an amazing cover. It's limited to 50
Wow.
numbered uh virgin chromium hollow foil. I when
Okay.
when I initially saw that, I was like, so just a foil, right? And then like the guy who I work with the print shop, it's like, yeah, but people
It
like
sounds
that.
cool.
So I was
The
like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna
virgin foil, virgin
virgin
foil,
chrome hollow foil.
virgin chrome hollow foil. I don't think I've ever heard those words in that order before, but damn, but one of
It
getting your hands
sounds
on one of,
nice.
yeah, it sounds nice. Sounds real nice. I like it.
Sounds real
I
nice.
like
I
it a
like
lot.
it. But yeah, so we'll be there signing. We're gonna do free autographs as well. She'll do remarks. Those are not free, obviously. But yeah, we have 50 numbered. I also will have some blanks that I'm gonna try to shoot my shot at some big name artists that are gonna be there to see if they'll
Nice.
do a cover, but we'll see about that. But that's another thing, when doing it on your own, if you don't have a crew, like I have a good friend named Kyle Willis, and he works with a lot of artists as he's an artist as well. So he's done a lot of covers for people. So when he wrote his book, he already had a stable of artists ready to collaborate. I don't have that. I've got
Right.
Martin, I've got a few other artists that are willing to work with me already, so that's another big thing, that if you're trying to do it on your own, make sure you can have a good accompaniment of artists that will, because the the weird thing about collecting nowadays is that a lot of people just don't even want the A covers. They just want variants. They want the coolest cover, whether it's the A, B, C,
Hmm.
limited to 1,000, limited to 2. It doesn't matter. If it's fancy, they want it. So like, I don't want to say like the Here Walks Monsters Ashcan cover is plain, because it's not, but it's not like pop off the cover like, oh my god, what's this? I have to look at this. It's just Here Walks
Sure.
Monsters. It gives you the vibe of the book more so than trying to pull you in. You got to have some bells and whistles for the people. I mean, that's the thing I didn't really have much in the
Got to give them what
Ashcan
they want.
Kickstarter. So we're gonna definitely gonna lean into that hard with the first issue when we get that rolling. I've already got a couple artists lined up for multiple covers,
Right.
so we're doing good.
I guess that's where that conflict of the creative and the business side come in. Because the creative side, you're saying, I'm making this because I want to make this. I'm making this for me. Whereas the business side is, well, yeah, I made it for me, but people got to buy it. People got to
Right.
buy it, and uh, and you got to give the people what they want. You got to
It's
do.
not enough to
So
just have a good story. I mean, if
right,
you want to write it for your own benefit, great. But if you're gonna be trying to, like print it and actually, because like I want to have 100+ issues. If I'm gonna
yeah,
be this crazy to do this, I gotta make money on the road to do it. To like, because the Kickstarter pays for the next one, pays for this, pays for that. So like I'm hoping to use what I earn from the exclusives at MegaCon to help fund like
sure.
getting artists, to go on for full issue 1 and for promotion, for all these things. It's a labor of love, but it's also a business. And the better you do the business side, the more you can do what you love. So I'm
Well,
trying to find that balance.
you're going to be in the deep end at MegaCon because you're going to be surrounded by these amazing artists. What better time to network and get your name out there,
Abs-
get the book out there. Uh,
exactly.
But also, the flashy covers, yeah, that'll grab some eyes. But it is, and there is great quality in Here Walks Monster in its story. So sure, a hollow chrome virgin megaphone. I can't remember the words. I can't remember the words. Chrome. I can't. But listen. You know what I mean. Okay. That cover, that Virgin Megastore cover. I'm not sure what it is going to get the eyes on the book, but it's the story that's going to keep people coming back. And Here Walks Monsters has a fantastic story. It was
Thank you.
really cool, like really fun, really cool, and it kind of gave us a glimpse of a much larger world. I think the Ashcan did exactly what it was designed to do. It introduced us into the world of Here Walks Monsters, which, by the way, great name. Absolutely
Thank
love it.
you.
Here Walks Monsters. I love it. It's got and Boom Studios has been doing, I think, a wonderful job in the last, I'll say 10 years or so, just in case I'm off, but of presenting these kind of modern horror stories to us with
Yep.
these, something is killing the children and some, names that are similar to that. And I think Here Walks Monsters, the title alone invokes that EC horror of the 1950s, but also this horror resurgence that's been taking place in the last couple of years. I'd like to give a lot of credit to The Walking Dead, but there's also some other great books, like
Yeah.
again, Something's Killing the Children and House of
Department of
Slaughter,
Truth,
Department of Truth. Right.
pretty much anything. And I personally, I credit Tynion so much for the resurgence of horror, especially in the horror comic side, because
Yeah.
whatever he writes, everything is absolutely fantastic. I mean, World Tree, you said Something's
Oh,
Killing
people going
Children,
crazy for
House of
World Tree. Yeah.
Slaughter. I mean, there's Dracula, he's that. And the reason why my book is definitely going to honor the the great stuff that came before us, because without them I wouldn't even have any zombie material to even reference, or anything
Right.
like that. But the current horror seems to be the last place where anything is still allowed.
Okay. Fair.
Where like comedy used to be, comedy's comedy. You can make a joke and it just be that, a joke. Horror is horror. Like, I mean,
Correct.
when I was like Chucky, the new Chucky series, I really love that show. Chucky's the one, I'm a huge fan of Chucky
Yeah. Yeah.
throughout my whole life. But they had like there's a teenage gay love story in the middle of
Mhm.
this Chucky series, and I'm like,
Oh, I think I
how
know exactly.
how is like the thought police not trying to get this canceled because of that? And I'm like,
Right.
because it's horror. It's like, because
And
horror
Chucky
is the last
endorses
safe
it, by
place.
the way.
Yes, yes.
Chucky endorses it because he references his own child. I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Great
It's
show.
it's so good, and I'm just thinking to
Yeah.
myself, if that was in just about anything else, even comedy, anything, there would be a great mass of people on the internet complaining about it. But
Oh
horror
yeah. Well,
seems to be the last frontier where you can tell real stories
mhm.
and not be worried about who you might offend with it. Like, if I want to chop off someone's head, I can chop off someone's head in a horror story. But if you
Fair
make
game.
you make a joke about in an accent different than your own, it could be,
Yeah. They
you
drag you
could
right
set
out
off a
of Chuck E.
fire.
Cheese. You you
So
in a comic book. In a comic book, you could have someone beheaded. You make that joke at Chuck E. Cheese, they drag you out of the ball pit, and they don't let you back. I mean, I'm not just talking from personal experience. I'm just saying. You know.
But yeah, I think that's the resurgence of horror, is because of that. It's because it's the last place where you're free to make a story for the
Mhm.
sake of telling the story, instead of it having to be something that can get you canceled. Like,
Yeah.
I hate cancel culture because I think it defeats the purpose. Like, I feel like if you do something so bad that you should like be on display for everyone to see for all time, instead of removing it so no one in future generations sees it. It's like, kind of like, if you don't know the past, you're doomed to make the same mistakes.
Sure. Sure.
That's my thought on that. But horror definitely seems to be the last frontier where you can get away with some crazy stuff.
I'm sure. I'm sure you could take a microscope to just about any life on this planet or any person who's ever existed, and you're going to find something horrific in every single one of them. And it doesn't mean that it diminishes any of their accomplishments, or people say do uh, dumb things all the time. If you're going to use that one thing against them and crush them, but the horror genre really is. Uh, Forgiving in that you could essentially tell and sci-fi I think falls into that
Yeah,
domain as well, where you
yeah.
you could just essentially you still have that carte blanche, that freedom to be as creative in your storytelling as possible. But
What?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and like that is why I'm writing the book like the way I am. It's like I said, it's a story of the downfall of society the downfall of humanity when society is no longer there to do the cancel culture or to do anything like that. It's just everyone's allowed to be who they want to be, and I feel like if that was the case, most of us would be pretty monstrous. And that's why I called it Here Walks Monsters, because whether
Yeah.
it's a zombie, infected, or a human, the only thing left walking the planet is monsters, because all the good people have already been killed or eaten. So all
Yeah.
that's
I
left is the monsters.
Kyle, I do have a tendency to read into things greatly because I always look for that. Okay, it is entertainment, but even in the entertainment, especially in the horror genre, the sci-fi genre, there is that element of reflection, cultural reflection.
Mhm.
And when I saw the title "Here Walks Monsters," and I read the ash can, and at one point, one of our main protagonists, the male main protagonist, who wasn't named in the ash can, kind of lets loose, and all his violent tendencies and aggression and anger come out. I go, "Oh, okay. You know what? Maybe in this world of zombies, in places where people have this carte blanche to let out all their anger, their aggression. I'm like, does this title work both ways? Are the monsters refer? Is the monster in Here Walks Monsters referring to the infected, the zombies, or are we talking about the humans who are essentially in almost I Am Legend esque kind of way hunting these zombies? And as you saw, well, as you as you wrote, and as Martin, French name, very nice French name, Drew. Was it Martin, or am I now? I messed that
No,
one up. But anyway,
Martin, yeah, you're right.
oh, I nailed the Martin. Not even going to try the French name. And he did a great job. And I do like you said, the silhouettes. And I do think that's not only a testament to the art, because you didn't need the detail. You didn't
Right.
need the silhouette alone relayed the nature of the beast in this case. Of the zombies. But I think it's so good because these are zombies are so ingrained in our minds and so ingrained in our culture that the detail uh, wouldn't have made that scene any more poignant than it was. And
I actually think it might
the
have taken away from it a little bit.
I agree. So yeah,
Yeah.
the shadows really accentuated the silhouette, really accentuated uh, this lone human in that particular panel standing out amongst these monsters. I think it was very an excellent choice, and I really do think I have to congratulate you again because it's rare, and I've had the pleasure of talking to a lot of self publishers. I have a lot talking to indie artists, indie writers, and finding a letterer, finding a artist and a writer that are meshing as well as the three of you are. It's a rare
Yeah.
occurrence. So
It's
kudos.
amazing. I'm so lucky. I say every single interview. I am probably one of the luckiest creators on the planet, because they're just that good. Like that specific scene that you're talking about. It was funny because when he turned in that page, it was with the silhouettes, and I was like, hey. It is because it was still a work in progress at the bottom of the page, so I wasn't sure if maybe he was going to go back. And I was like,
Right.
"Hey, by any chance, are those silhouettes what you meant to do, or
Is that finished
what
product? Yeah, yeah.
or is that finished or is that not finished?" She goes, "Oh no, that's exactly what I meant." I was like, "Perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome." Like I was so excited because I didn't write that. I did not write that in the script.
Mm,
He took it upon himself to do that, and it was what I had pictured in my head but didn't write down.
that's
And
great,
he
man.
just got it. And
Yeah.
that's it's a blessing. I can't speak on how amazing it is to work with him enough, really.
So people are going to have a chance to see you if they are visiting MegaCon in Orlando.
Yes.
But for anyone who's not in the Sunshine State, and if they wanted to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about Here Walks Monsters, where can I direct them to?
Well, you can just either come to my regular page, Nerdtween. The name is right above my head over there. That's my main page for everything. You search that on any pretty much any platform, you'll find me. But Here Walks Monsters has its own Instagram account, Here Walks Monsters Comics. Uh, and that is where I'm going to try to drive as many people to, because that's where I'll be putting as much updates on when the future parts of the story is coming out, any announcements about artists that are coming on board, anything like that will be on that Instagram account. So that's the best place to find more about Here Walks Monsters specifically.
Very cool. Very cool. And uh, any plans for uh, issue one getting out on Kickstarter?
Yes, so great. I submitted all but the last two pages because I'm not sure how I want to end the first issue, which because I have two specific ideas and I'm debating on which way I'm going to go for that. So that's the only thing that hasn't been turned into the artist. So I'm hopefully going to be launching issue one sometime in the next few months. I'm shooting for March
Okay.
is when I'm comfortable saying that it will either be up or ready to go by then at the probably the latest. Um because Martin's really good. Once he gets rolling, it's done in a few days. So I'm probably about to be behind because I have two pages left to write for him. And then Tyrone, he just again, I hand it to him in a
Yeah,
week or so, and he's just knocked it
that's a
out the
quick
park
turnaround.
better than I expected. Like, and
Right.
me and him, we've gone back and forth on things like, hey, can you do this or maybe this or that and that? And that's the longest process of the whole thing because I have not learned how to write for everyone in my script yet. Like I said, I
Okay.
write specifically for Martin to understand what I'm trying to do. So when it comes to the wording and things like that, I have to get better so he understands what I need. so we don't have to go back and forth. Because that's definitely on me as a first time creator and just not knowing how other people besides Martin might want to
Right.
read it. It's where they don't have to go, hey, what did you mean by this? Hey, stuff like that is very nitpicky when it comes to it to make it that much better. So
But
it's
just think,
yeah,
this is where you guys are now with the ash can, almost done with issue 1. Just imagine where you're going to be by issue 3 in terms of just how synchronized the three of you are going to
oh
be in
yeah,
terms
it's
of
gonna be
producing.
insane.
Right.
Like, we,
It's
we
going to be
may
great.
be able to do like a quick monthly type thing, but I don't want to like lock myself down to that time
Sure,
frame
sure.
because I don't rush art. Art's got to be art. You know what I mean? So
Right.
hopefully the next few months we can launch issue 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not
That'd be
1,
awesome.
not 2, not 3.
Well, I
um,
will definitely be following. I'll definitely be backing the Kickstarter. Looking forward to it. And Martin, excuse me, she's Martin. I'm sorry, I called you Martin, Kyle. Kyle, I wish you all the best with Nerdtooine, with Here Walks Monsters. I think you've got something special on your hands. Thanks for sharing with me, and thanks for sharing with everybody. I'll be following your success very closely, and looking forward to seeing what comes next for the book and the account. So, congratulations on everything.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
I just want to again thank you for stopping by Nerds Night Out. It's been been a blast, been a pleasure. And
Thank
on
you for
that
having
note,
me.
oh, my pleasure, brother, my pleasure. It's always good talking to you, guys. Thank you very much for joining us at Nerds Night Out. I'm Tom. That was Kyle, and we'll see you next time. Be well, everybody. Signing off.